Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Live Coding and Chill. I'm Johnny and I hope you're having a lovely week and it's gonna get even better starting from now. We're doing something a bit different today in that I kinda know what I'm doing and I'm ready to teach. Usually these live coding and chill sessions are about me figuring out stuff that I kinda know from experience, I've seen before, I want to research live and cure imposter syndrome by seeing a principal software engineer stumble upon things. But today we're coming back with a vengeance to create a great search functionality in our dashboard app using SvelteKit. So we're building this, we'll build this UI, we'll be fetching some data the SvelteKit way, and we'll be filtering the data the SvelteKit way as well. So we're gonna be focusing really on this search input functionality because that's the thing that really stumped me last week or last episode, and I went into the docks, I guess, not into the woods or the mines, the coding mines maybe, and found out exactly how we can do it today. And of course, the best way to learn is to be wrong on the internet, so if I'm not doing it well today, someone will let me know for sure. But I'm confident, I think we can do a great job here, and I think this is the way to do it. It's even in the docs, but we'll get to it. We'll talk about why you want something like this. At some point, you will be asked to create some sort of admin UI where people can get in and see their customers and see who has an invoice to pay or who has paid. And you'd have too many results to be able to manually scan. So then your users will be like, search functionality would be nice, and it would also make your app more performant. So the need for an awesome search box arises, and we're gonna build it. So, big agenda today. Also, this is a real thing. You can click around on it. The links are in the description. You can see the code, open source and free. So here we go. We'll switch to the big view and get things rolling. We have the dashboard app that we've been building, following along the Next.js and Learn free course, which we did with Next.js and now we're doing with SvelteKit to figure out what's the same, what's different when these great frameworks converge and when they go slightly the other way. I do think the way SvelteKit is doing things like search in the end is much easier once you know what exactly to do. You need to worry less about state management on your own. You don't need to bring in things like Redux or React Query or anything like that, which you don't need to with Next.js as well in React, but I think people do default to that. And even if you do it in the most Next.js and React way possible, I still think the SvelteKit way is better and closer to what you'd be doing even without JavaScript. And this is going to work even without JavaScript. I do think that's important to note. So we have this dashboard app here, and we've removed the invoices route, which we're going to build today because we're going to build the whole thing. So this should be a great refresher to reestablish our learnings or learn how to do things for the very first time. What we want for our invoices route is to show all the invoices to start with. The way you do routes in SvelteKit, because that route doesn't exist, but we know that we want it to be /dashboard/invoices. We want users to go to our app /dashboard/invoices and see their invoices, see some UI there. So how are we going to do that? With SvelteKit, what you do is you go into your source, routes, dashboard, invoices, and create a page.server.ts. So much like Next.js in SvelteKit, your directory structure in the routes directory, source routes, reflects the path that the user will need to take to see that corresponding UI. So if that folder doesn't exist, you need to create it. If that path doesn't exist in your app, you need to create it. With a vanilla SvelteKit app, you'll have the source routes and then you'll need to make everything up. And in SvelteKit, some names are magic and all magic names start with +page when it comes to file names at least. So to show some UI in /dashboard invoices, we want a +page.svelte in it. And the moment we do that, no longer do we get the 404 because we found the page. This is it. This is the page. And you can see that this page has no other UI but It is nested inside the layout. It's a shared layout for all our dashboard routes. That's why we get this header all the time. And we also get this sweet HTML view transitions, which is a new spec. Still doesn't work on things like Safari, but it's coming and it's awesome and a great differentiator. If you have a SvelteKit app or a Nastro app or any framework that does implement it, do use it. I do think it helps sell that app-like feel. It makes your app feel better, more professional. Perception is reality. Users are going to see this and they're going to think that this app is awesome. And it is really a drawback for Next.js, where it's too complicated to set it up and most people don't bother. Like I don't bother setting it up because it's too complicated now. And I know that it's a lot of work behind the scenes for the team, the Next.js team, to now set it up for it to work. But we'll see. That team can work miracles. Anyway, this is the page. Let's start with some nice UI to look at and hard-coded data, I guess. So instead of UI, what do I have here? In order to save some time, we've done all of this and we've done the UI live in previous episodes, but I do have some UI here, just so it will kind of look nice. So this is just some HTML looking things, and it is indeed HTML that Svelte is magically understanding. That we're in here, it's just a few divs with a few Tailwind classes, nothing too special besides this icon. This icon is a component from a component library called Lucide. No component library, like an icon library called Lucide. So that big plus icon here, which is the best thing, the best looking thing in this route for now. So we are going to switch this script tag to TypeScript. And what we want to do is to render some data here. We want to render the invoices. And we'll start with hard-coded data for the fun of it. So let's say that our invoices are, I do have some dummy data here. Hard-coded data. They represent what users look like in our database, but that's not important right now. What is important right now is that we can render it in our UI. So here, like I could JSON stringify all the data, and we can see that we have them stringified here. But again, to save some time, I do have the nice table component that is going to make all of these things look nice, because the point of the episode is how do I load data and how do I then filter through it? How do I do the awesome search bar? So that UI bit, you can see it on a previous live stream. For now, I am going to bring in the table component that I've already created. And if I pass the hard-coded invoices here, then just give some UI. If I turn this into all the dates into date objects, not ISO strings. So there we go. We have a cute table here. And because I have the kind of iPhone view, you can't really see. Hopefully that's visible enough. Just double checking whether the stream is live. So we have this nice UI here. We only have 3 items in our dummy data, but it will be more obvious that at some point we will need to search once we hook this up with real data. So next up, how can I make this be dynamic? It is cool to work with hard-coded data when you want to set up your UI, and UI is the most fun thing. So sometimes I do feel like doing the most fun thing first. Sometimes I like saving the most fun thing for last and leave the UI for right the end. But it depends. I have my days. I don't know what you prefer. That'd be interesting to hear. But in any case, we want to make this dynamic. So we said that we have this source routes invoices plus page.svelte. And the way we pass data here, the way we load data to this UI is by using another magic plus page svelte file. It's gonna have a load method and it's gonna load all the data that we want. And when I said plus page.svelte, I didn't literally mean .svelte. I meant Svelte framework file. So this is actually going to be a TypeScript file. You can have two sorts of load methods, a universal load method that can run on the server and the client, or a server only load method that only runs on the server. The effect is going to be almost always the same as far as the user is concerned, and I guess as far as you're concerned, but with server-only modules, with server-only load methods, you ensure that you're not leaking your secrets. So if you have a database connection, you probably use a secret there that soon be leaked. Like they soon find out your root username and password and how you connect to your database. People that can inspect your source code and whatnot. But what using the server load method ensures is that you don't leak that stuff. It only runs on the server. They cannot see what code is running there. You can put anything you want in there. While if you have a universal load method, if it runs on the client and uses that secret, then people will be able to find it. And then you leak your secret and then you are in trouble. So since it's very, very similar what those things do, the server only load method and the universal load method, I always go with a server load method. And my mind is at peace. The difference are how the data gets passed on the client, really. If it's going to be like an HTTP call, or some things that are frankly not for me to explain because I need to study more on them and then talk about them. What I am going to do is explain how the load methods work. So in this plus page.server.ts, we need to export a load method. Again, a lot of the SvelteKit magic is name dependent. So you need to have a plus page.server.ts or a plus page.ts, and it needs to export a load method. And you can type this as page server load. The cool thing is that if you have the dev server running, those types will be automatically created for you. So that's neat. And in that method, anything you return is going to be exposed to the UI. So if I'm going to remove the invoices here, our UI is going to kind of crash because now I'm trying to iterate through invoices that don't exist. But if I hard code them here and then return them in an object, you always need to return an object, then the UI will be able to make use of them. And the way to receive the data that the load methods load, you export let data. So you introduce a variable that this page component accepts, a property that this page component accepts, props. And that one will also be magically typed by the dev server, by SvelteKit for you, which is quite nice. So already it knows that data is an object that has invoices in them, because that's what we return on our server file. And here you definitely do not need to use the type, and you just magically get it. Although I do like manually typing this, maybe that's my limitation as a human and I shouldn't be doing this, but I do find that sometimes it won't quite understand what load is supposed to be if I don't manually tell it on the load method. But that's just me. This one, every time I've used it, it always automatically gets typed. So that's cool. And it means that we can say to our table, our invoices are data invoices. And then, bam, we're back to getting our nice table beautifully rendered here, but we're still using hard-coded data. The difference is that the UI, as far as it knows, this is real dynamic data and we need to make no further change here. So that's sweet. And on the backend, on the load method, we can actually make the invoices be something dynamic, something we get from a database. Similarly to the UI, it doesn't really matter how you get this. You may have like an invoices repository or whatever else. I have created this method in previous episodes. So I do have a helper method that is called fetch invoices, I believe. Yeah, that looks correct. And this one is going to fetch all the invoices there in an invoices key. So the moment I save, I should get real data from my database. So there you go, tons of data. And we can see why we want search here, because that's just too much. It's still like doable, it's humanly manageable, but at some point you'll have, you know, hundreds of customers, hundreds of invoices for each customer, and that'd be too much. This one we'll have a look later, but I'm still using Prisma for a database client. It doesn't really matter, it could be like an in-memory one. I did have a look at the Drizzle, which was the suggestion, and I'm very keen to use it next time because I love the wit, I love the way they present themselves, and I like the docs, I like what they're doing there. So next project, Drizzle is very, very likely what I'm going to be using. And of course, Supabase, I very often use Supabase as well, but that's by the by. It doesn't really matter how you fetch your data for this demo, but behind the scenes, you will see that we are running two queries, one to actually fetch the invoices and one to count how many invoices are in total according to your search parameters. But that's a bit of a spoiler alert. We're going to need those things later. Now we just need all the invoices to be fetched because the user has not added any filters, they haven't searched anything, they're not in a particular page. We will be doing search and pagination soon after. So welcome and hi, Marcel in the chat. So let's have a look at the agenda. We scaffolded the new route. We did the UI with hardcoded data. We did the page server with hardcoded data and then dynamic data loading using our helper method, which happens to be using Prisma. And then it is time to start introducing the stuff we need for search. So we will fake it first, or we'll do the backend first, and then we'll do the UI. So I said before that usually I do the UI first because it's more fun. I guess now it proves that sometimes I feel different. And this time I'll do the backend first. If we look at like Google search and search like what are URL searchParams, we'll see that somewhere here there will be my query. It will have a search param, so after the name of the page, it has a question mark, Q equals my question. And Q, of course, stands for Q, the character from Star Trek who knows everything, and it's a tribute to them. Not really. It stands for query. You can use anything you want. I am gonna leave it to the chat, should we use Q or query for this parameter. The idea is that what we'll be doing to reflect like Google is we'll either be doing query and then whatever the user types, or Q and whatever the user types. Query is more understandable, I think, like people don't need to know what Q stands for or what it's supposed to represent, like to non-engineers, that's a random letter. But on the other hand, naming things is hard, but also in the get URL requests, it's one of the places where length actually matters. There is a limit to how long your address, your URL can be. So in theory, if you use Q instead of query, you save like a few characters that the user can type to search, but that's not a realistic problem. I don't think we're gonna run into a place where the user is typing in like a million things. Even my name isn't that long, and the prices aren't going to be that big. Anyway, I don't think we'll run into the URL string limit, character limit, by using query or queue. So I will leave it to you. Let me know which one you'd like, and I'll use that one. But it is a concern. Like if you are debating with another engineer, they may say, actually, if we use queue, you will save a few characters there. And in any case, the idea is search parameter, queue or query equals this, the user search, and then we're gonna pass that into our helper method, which talks to the database, and use it to filter through our results. No matter what the name is, the way you get access to those in SvelteKit is you get the URL that gets magically given in the object given to the load method. The load method has a few cool things. We'll use a couple of them today. One of them is the URL, which is the whole URL that the user is hitting now to be served this page. And that URL can have search params. So we can say that the query is URL search params get query. Going for that one. I'm fixing for engagement here. And then we can pass it in to our fetch invoices method. So, in theory, if we manually type query Alicia here, we do indeed only get the Alicia Haley, I suppose, customer related invoices. Or if we were to do like query paid, we're also filtering on that, we'd only see the paid invoices here. If we do something that doesn't exist, we get no results. So it may be nice to show nice no results UI. So it is gonna work. If we want a sneak peek on what I'm actually doing behind the scenes in fetch invoices, even though it doesn't really matter for today, the way I'm doing it with Prisma, it's actually quite tricky because if you pass in something, you can pass an empty string, but I also want this to match prices. So if I say like 202, I want to see this $202 invoice. And Prisma flips out if you try to use an equals without a number, which is what would happen in the case where the query is like an actual string. So if this was still Alicia, then this one, this parse float query, parse float Alicia, would not be a number, and therefore Prisma would be flipping out. So the way I'm actually doing the filter is a bit complicated here, to be honest, but that's right, because we're not focusing on that. We're focusing we are giving the query search param. The user now just needs to be able to add this in a reasonable way. If you deliver this feature and you say, all right, you need to go to the address bar and type your search there, rejected. Like no PM is going to accept this, no user is going to accept this, that's not usable. We need to have a search input. So that's the meat, really, of today's stream. And we're going to do it using a vanilla HTML form along with a vanilla HTML input. It's going to work just fine. It is actually one of the examples in SvelteKit. SvelteKit form actions are awesome, but it's not really what we're going to be using here. Form actions are only for post forms, but now we're going to be using a get form because we're only getting data, we're not mutating anything, we just want to filter. And that's the param case for get form. And the param case for get form, the param example is search input. So the example they have here is actually literally search input, like we do, but they're using queue because it's more efficient. But that's understandable. It's always a trade-off. So what exactly are we going to do? We're back to the point where the server is done. It's UI for a bit. And here yes, we need to implement our search. What we are going to do is probably create a new component. Let's call it search.svelte. And let's copy this and paste it here and go back to use our new search component. It's back. And we did say this is going to be a form, vanilla HTML form. And it's going to have an input. The autocomplete is trying to help me here. You don't need to put types mentioned buttons that are inside forms. That's the implicit type if they are inside forms. So you can see that we have some search here. The UI for the designer gave us, let's say, doesn't have a bespoke search button, which is bad for accessibility. It doesn't have a bespoke label, which is bad for accessibility. But we can add a screen reader only, at least label. We can put this inside the label and add a screen reader only element. And this will have some accessibility, not like 100% accessibility, but it will help some people. And again, we're at the point where I am gonna just paste some styles, so don't worry, it's not gonna be anything really important. The idea is we want a form and we want an input, and it's gonna be the same things that are left here. I am bringing in a search icon to have that nice magnifying glass. And it does get a bit not in the middle there. Well, we can fix that later. I know, it's just this I meant to be screen reader only. SR only is the class. All right. So no magic yet. We still have a form. We nested everything inside a label, so it's more easily clickable. We have a screen reader only span that describes what this element is. We have the input as we had before, and we have a magnifying glass here. So just styles. And let me know if this is probably better. Because we'll be focusing on this. It's all looking decent. Maybe just a bit of margin here. Bit of space. So we've got this going for us. And here's where we're gonna do the SvelteKit magic. We know that if we manage to get, if we navigate, we end just into the invoices route, dashboard invoices. We know that if we manage to go to the invoices question mark query param, query equals whatever the user types, then we'll have filtered results, which is the goal. This is what we need. So that is achieved with a regular SvelteKit, regular HTML form. We need to say that we want to go wherever we are now. So we are in dashboard invoices, and any input that is in this form, SvelteKit will magically add it as a URL search param for us, which is not really SvelteKit magic, it's just HTML magic. That's how forms are supposed to work. That's what they do by default, even without JavaScript. So that means if we make this input have a name of query, anything I put there, so let's see, we have a Dale here that's off screen. If I put in Dale and submit the form, then I should see the Dale appearing here. And I can submit this form only by pressing enter. So I'm going to do it. And bam, done, implemented. We did it. Confetti should be flying. If I had the technology, I should be adding it. So indeed, we do know that this works as before, as described. It will find specific amounts. It will find, of course, people matching. And it will not crash if it doesn't find any results, which is always nice. Are there any letters that are like similar among people? Dana Beertorp, what a name. All of these are faker names, by the way. And my name is Macripis, so that's a faker name if I've ever heard one. All right, so all of this works. That's cool. There are some things that people may want. One of them is, can I get the results without me pressing the enter key? Look, and even if you had the button, can you make this happen for me? Because I don't want to press enter. It's awkward to do so, maybe on an iPhone or whatever. I just want this form to auto submit. So I think that's my plan for what we'll be doing next. Yeah, auto searching as a user types. So again, I'll put it to the audience. There are two ways to do this. You can do this either by debouncing, which is you wait for the user to stop typing and then you submit the query. Or you can do it by throttling, which is you start searching and you search at an interval so long as the user is typing, but the maximum is going to be like once every 300 milliseconds or something like that. So you can see the results update as I'm typing or not. Both of them are good for everyone. I do think it's better for the user if they don't need to press the enter key and if they can see some results, see some interaction from the app when they stop the thing or they stop typing. And they do save on server requests, because if you were to make this auto submit every time on every keystroke, then that's too much and bad UX, because people don't usually just think of a single letter to add. There will be, okay, I just did it in my mind as well. I see Creek here and I'm like, I'm gonna add that one. I won't want to update SSNK, but maybe. So I will leave it to you. First thing, I guess, let's make it work by querying, by running the search on every keystroke. So I press D, I should see DL immediately without me pressing the enter button. How do we do that? Well, we use a change event called input. So on input, we want something to happen. And we can do it in line for now. We can say that what we want to happen on input, this method gets given the event. The event is going to have a current target. And the current target, if it's an input element that's sent a form, it always will have a form element. But TypeScript says, well, maybe it doesn't have a form element. But we know it does. We can put the question mark here for safety. TypeScript isn't really looking to see if this is actually rendered inside the form. But all we need to do is to submit the form at this point. So just save that. The moment I press D, well, we have the server request and then we get the result, which is neat. So if I were to type for Kayla, then you see we get the result once again. So that's neat. But if we look at the network requests, I will switch to the big browser for this. I don't want to know what's new. I do want to know what's going to happen so long as I keep pressing buttons. So you can see if you were fast enough that we started querying, we started hitting different pages. The moment we pressed the next button, the previous request was cancelled because we started navigating to the next page. And eventually when we stopped typing, we made it to Roberta. What we want to do instead of canceling these requests potentially is to either throttle or debounce the request. And I guess I'm gonna, so debounce. We did this. Oh yeah, keep the focus on the input element. That's actually good. So I didn't even notice that, but another important thing, like now we're starting with a query parameter and this should reflect this. How do we do that? That's actually quite important. So the value of this input should be whatever it is that URL search param. Svelte offers a page store. We can bring in it here, and the page does have again the URL object, and that URL object has search params, and in there is a query. And we could say, we could derive this here and say that query is actually all of this. Just wrote and pass it in here. Or string. So now correctly, we can see that it does reflect where we are. So if someone copy pastes this link and it's like, check out the Roberta results, I can paste it in my browser and this input will be correctly pre-filled and I know what's happening. Well, before you were like, why am I seeing only Roberta's here? It doesn't seem correct. And now I tried typing, but I cannot type on the input because the moment the request happens and we navigate, we lose focus. We can keep the focus if we add a magic SvelteKit data attribute to the form. Again, in this little section, they do talk about all of these things. It's the data-sveltekit keep focus. So let's try to do that and see what happens. That one worked, but that one is the live one. So it would work. This one didn't. So there must be something we're forgetting. I think it's the way we're submitting the form. Let's remove the input for a moment and see if we've put it in the correct element. So now I manually submit. It does keep the focus. If not, then it managed to keep the focus. It seems like we have successfully, SvelteKit has figured out that we switched to the client-side router that we're staying in the app. So everything is much faster. You see that the results are much faster than before. So something we were doing by submitting the form like this was making SvelteKit flip out, which is interesting. I will try get a reference to the form. So let form and bind this to form. And this one is an HTML form element. So if inside here in the callback, I just call the form like this, is SvelteKit happy? Will it do the magic? The answer is no. Interesting. Is it because of the action? So another way to get the exact action here is This is the thing with live demos, we always learn something. We do have access, as we saw, to the URL from the page store, and we can dynamically get the path name here for the action. But still, not quite happy. So the moment we do it in this handler, the SvelteKit kinda flips out. Let's see if we have like a handle input handler here. Hello, Andrew. And hello, Joao. Nice to see you both. So if we extract this here, and we just say handle input, maybe prevent default will make it happen. Maybe it will make it not work. Who knows? We're gonna find out. And I am gonna restart the server just in case, because you never know. You never know. Yeah, we do get kicked out. So what are we doing incorrectly? Thankfully, I do have the correct way to do it as well. But I think I'm doing it the same way. I'm finding the form from the current target. We have the query. We have all of these things. It looks the same. And we have the action path name like this. So not certain. I did switch, did update the SvelteKit versions right before, Svelte versions even, right before. So let's have a look here. Let's PNP my, just in case there is like a fresh bug going on here. Oh wow. It is. Or maybe it isn't. Not sure. No, it isn't. So what could it be? We will keep moving on, but just a quick look. We do have this focus. It is a vanilla form that we're having. On input, we're doing handle input. There is no like prevent default or anything like that. So what's the deal? Unclear. Oh well. In any case, we gotta keep going. We gotta keep moving. So, handle input. Even though it switches to the server-side router, which isn't that nice, we'll figure that out shortly. Nah, it's not the default thing. And we don't need to bind the form or anything like that. Let's do it the same way as before. We have the event here. The event has a current target. Event, current target. Form. Maybe it's there. And we can type this as, well, I guess I'll have a look at how I typed it here, since I was here, because that was actually quite tricky to figure out, the typing. So our handle input handler, it's an event handler from Svelte, can bring in, and we can say that it's on an HTML input element, gets an event, or runs on an HTML input element, which sometimes has a form. If it's inside the form, it is always going to have it. And this is still working. Let's add a prevent default. No, I don't think that would be doing anything. Getting into these rabbit holes, I refuse to give up. Because there must be something that's different. Oh well, because we are not on the client-side router at the moment, that's why we're losing focus. The moment we stopped doing this programmatic submit, then SvelteKit does not stay with the programmatic router. So that's unfortunate. But still, the point is that I don't want this to happen every time I type. This loading to happen every time I type. I'm gonna debounce it. How can we debounce this? Well, we can introduce a timeout. There are helper libraries that can help you with this. In front-end land, in JavaScript, in browser JavaScript, timeouts, when you create them, you get a number back, so you can clear them. So we can say if timeout, clear timeout, even though you don't really need to do that, because if this is null, then this is going to do nothing. But it's just nice to see. And then we're going to say our timeout is set timeout. And then what we want to happen inside it. And then how long we need to debounce it for. So 300 milliseconds. And if I try to make this work, then it will do nothing because, so I need to keep it question for Dale, because funnily enough, the moment you do something like this debounce, the moment you get the event passed around like this, the current target disappears and becomes the target. That's kind of confusing. So on the JavaScript thread, I guess, when this function gets called with the event, and the current target is going to be the input, which is going to have a form, parent element, and can be submitted. But when I put it in a timeout, the current target becomes null, and it's actually the target that's the input that has a parent form that you can submit, which is kind of crazy. But if we get a reference to the form like we did before, it is going to work. Or if we do get the form out of the element now, that is going to be a reference to the actual form that we want to submit. So at this point, it's all going to work fine, unlike my keyboard. So at this point, this should work. It's not going to try, like you can see here, there is no loading spinner. It's not going to try to do anything. But the moment I stop typing for a few seconds, then it's going to actually run the search. So the moment I stop typing for 300 milliseconds, it's going to run. Herein, nice to see you. Yeah, stream's going great. So that stumped me for a little bit. Again, the moment this handler runs, so the moment the user inputs something in this input, then the current target is the input element, which has a form parent, which we need to extract, because by the time this runs on the timeout, the event will have mutated, and it's not going to have a current target, and you're not going to get the form. You may get a runtime error, but if you had the question mark, you wouldn't. But if we get the reference now, we can submit the form just fine. So it's all working nice and dandy. We can see it in like full screen. The only problem is that we're not switching to the client-side router, which we'll find out why it's happening soon enough. But I think we've managed to make like the throttling work. We aren't really keeping the focus, so we'll leave that out. How does this work with view transitions is a question. Would this ever work with view transitions? Let's see. We're not in the client-side router, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. So on the layout, on our core layout, we've set up this, we've run this onNavigate method from SvelteKit, and we're saying that only if you're trying to get from a path name that's not equal to the path name you're going to, only then do view transitions. Oh, there must be a problem with a client-side router that we've introduced somehow, because this is not navigating anymore. Oh, it is. Interesting. So if the path name you're coming from is equal to the path name you're going to, then you're not getting a transition. I do this because if I was to click here again on the home page, for example, if I didn't have this, then we'd be getting the animation again and again, which is probably not what you want, at least with the animation that I have. Maybe you'll want like a refresh animation and refresh the data or something like that. But what would happen if I was to search here? You can see that the view transition would work again. Sometimes. It seems like sometimes it does use the client-side router. Sometimes it doesn't, which is quite weird. But sometimes it does fly in, which is probably not what you want in any case. You could do something where you don't have this and you're checking to see if you are in this specific route, and then I want this specific table to be flying in. But I would say that it's probably better to have another type of transition. Maybe each row, that's a common thing to do, to have each row have a staggered animation and the results fly in, not necessarily the whole page. But using the forms like this would work with the view transitions API. It's just, I don't think you would want to do the animation like that. There are easier ways to do a nicer animation than using the view transitions API for this specific thing. All right. What else? Pagination, of course. So even now, let's just look at the console just a moment. Is there like anything weird happening here? Probably not. We see that it goes to the regular router by default, even though what it's saying here is that it uses the client-side router to do this. So not sure. And clearly on the live version, this is working just fine. Say this and then it takes a while to load, but it's working just fine. You can see that it's not refreshing the page. We are still on the client-side router, and we have cast the results, which we're gonna talk about later. So if it's something that I've just searched, then it's gonna get the results instantly instead of refreshing the page, which is good. But for some reason, there must be something that we're doing here that makes it hard default to refresh the page and do a regular transition. I'm not sure. If there was going to be one thing, it was going to be submitting the form, but apparently on the live app, SvelteKit understands that we're submitting this and it's doing its magic to not actually submit it and do the client-side routing stuff. So not sure. Can it not find the input because I've done it like this? Who knows? It's too far necessary. I don't imagine. Anyway, that's by the by. The other thing that we need to do is the pagination. So let's do it. The UI, because you can see here, even though I can search, like ideally, I wouldn't want to scroll that far down. I'd want to see how many results there are, how many pages, that sort of thing. This is overwhelming. So let's bring in the pagination, where we say implement pagination here. I do have a pagination component. Let's bring it in. And it wants a total pages and a total count. So let's say that the total pages are 3. Let's hard code some stuff to start with. And the total count is like you have 15 records. And now we can see that the pagination component does think that there are 3 pages because that's what we said. Has created 3 buttons that are just off screen. So the pagination component has created this, has added some links there that we'll see how they work. But we will be showing still a million items in the UI. And this doesn't really do anything. So we want a couple of things. We want to go back to where we load the data. So our page.server.ts. And we want to tell our fetch invoices to only take a specific amount of items. And I do like adding a constant here saying items per page, something like that. And let's say that it's going to be like 6. And then it's a bit more obvious what this actually does. You can even say invoices per page, to be honest. And then that's going to get respected. And we're only going to get 6 invoices. And then we get our pagination component here. All right. And again, the way this works behind the scenes is I accept a take parameter and I'm telling Prisma to take only 6 records for now. But that will only work in the first page of results because we're only going to take the first 6. We're going to need a way to say what the offset is. According to which page we are, we need a different offset. So if we're on the second page, we need to skip the first 6. And for that, we need to know which page we're on. And we are going to do the same trick again. So we are going to say that the user will be able to type that page equals 1, for example. And that should work exactly the same. But if they say page equals 2, then they should get the second row of results, which is probably not Alicia, and won't start from Alicia and end from to Ian there. So how are we gonna take this page param? Again, Google does P for this, but no one goes to the second page of Google results anyway, so who cares? So we are gonna do a similar thing. We're gonna say that page is going to be what we get from the search params. And therefore, we're going to skip GitHub Copilot knows. And indeed, if I go to the first page, it's Alicia to Ian. If I go to the second page, it's not Alicia to Ian, kind of proving that we are indeed on the second page of results. I guess it's 16 October, 26 October, and the last one here is 27. So sounds legit. The math checks out. Math is mathing. But what happens if I try to navigate to this route from any other route? Internal error. Because there is no page parameter, search parameter here, or query search parameter here. And in that case, maybe I want to like infer 1 or something like that, which would fix it. But then what if someone tries to go to like page like -3? Like again, that doesn't quite work. So we may need some error management there. And you can do this with Svelte library, which I did start, maybe I've used like 4 years ago if that existed, but I've only really started really liking it again after I saw it in the Next Learn course. But we can use it, have like a search schema. And I think we can do create schema object. Let's see if I remember how this API goes. So this page may have a query, which is a string. And let's say it's not optional, just for the fun of it. And let's say that page is a number and it must be positive. That way, we can call these like query search param, page search param, and we can get them out if we parse the search schema, passing in query search param for query and page % page search param. Query we're using here, skip. We can just use here, we don't need to parse it. And now we do get an internal error, but at least we do know. Oh, and we need to default this too. Now we get errors that we can better show to the user, I suppose. We can predict and show some UI saying that you're trying to be naughty or something and not be embarrassed by having them so easily break our servers by doing something like adding a negative number or something. And also, the way we've done it now, the UI at least doesn't break, and we can go to the next page just fine, as well as the previous page. You can see it working here. Again, here's the little buttons working. How can this work? They're regular anchor tags. These things, let's have a look. The pagination component. I am doing some calculations to figure out what the href should be according to what the current URL is, and then what the current page is, and that sort of thing. So I have this helper method which really sets the search param that I want according to the page I want to href into. So let's find an anchor tag. There are quite a few here. Every one of these buttons, including the previous and next buttons, they're just regular A tags, A elements, HTML elements, nothing magic. And we're specifying an href, which is nothing magic, it just has a question mark, page, something, and will include the query thanks to the way that we're getting the URL. We're getting the exact URL that is on this page, thanks to the page store. Like, many things are named the same in this episode, apologies for that. But if this has URL search params, they're gonna be preserved. And then we're just gonna reset or set for the very first time, if it's not set, the page search param. And then the regular anchor tag will work and SvelteKit will make everything else happen, as if by magic. So that's the way I'm doing pagination here. And again, if we want to look at the specific implementation of fetch invoices, it is Prisma again. The way you pass an offset to Prisma, you call skip. You say skip the first 5 elements, the first 6 elements, the first however many you want. And what you saw us doing here, we're saying, okay, how many you need to skip is according to the page we're on. And how many we have per page. We have this const here, so we're using it just fine. This shouldn't be shouting. Much better. All right. So pagination and UX concerns hopefully working. If we are in like the next page, the last page, and here there is no last page actually. So let's fix that. Should be this one. So if we just remove it, it should be kind of fine. But if we remove the previous one, so if we're in like the first page, I don't think that's going to be fine. Yeah, next is going to fall on the weight side. So let's see, instead of disabling this, we just don't need to show it. So if, what's the condition there? Let's say if the current page is not one, so if we're not on the first page, then there will always be a previous page. So we can render this button safely. But this should be at the end. And this shouldn't have like margin left and all of that. Like, who styled this? Maybe you should have a place self. Justify self end. Is that the real thing? Guess not. Is it like place self end? Not a real thing. Place self. It was a thing. But I guess it's like on a create column. Align self end. Self end. I thought that would work. What else left? Is the container not big enough? So we have this flex container. It's not full, it's the problem. Now it's full. Now one of these things will work. Maybe not. Oh, it's growing to be as big as needed. I see. But why is it growing? It doesn't even have an arrow. So why is it relative? Why is it inline flex? Why does it have item center? Ground and all of that. That's fine. Which one did we say full width? It's the only element here. It should be something like this. All right, just not to get too bogged down on this, I am gonna put in a sad span element here, which will make it work, but I don't like using like span elements for nothing. Oh well. With the element, it's gonna work as it does, as if the other anchor is there. So if we click that next, it is aligned just fine once again. But, and all of these don't need to be columns. When we are on the final page, just want to make this disappear, which is going to be similar to what we did here. But if the current page shouldn't be the total pages. So now on the last page, the next button doesn't appear, so we're not tricked into clicking it. First page, next button doesn't appear. And I think we'll want to do something similar. Maybe not. For the arrows, I think it looks nice. Maybe it should be more obviously disabled here. A bit more opaque, but that's fine. That's something to do another time. Cool. So what else? Let me have a quick Google. What a crazy bug. But yeah, for now, just to make this work, I think I'm gonna remove what we were doing here with the debouncing for now. And so long as we don't do the auto submit, it's gonna be fine. So now we do stay with the client side router, which is nicer. But I do wonder, like, what were we doing wrong? We're just submitting the form the same way. I remember. I had this problem. It's not submit. Someone timestamped this and TikTok this. Submit will make SvelteKit kind of flip out and force the submission as fast as possible in the only way it knows how. It's gonna do an HTTP regular going to server submit. What you actually want is to request submit. Did you know about this method? I didn't. So I think that's a timestamp point. The moment we do request submit, then I guess we're allowing SvelteKit to do its magic. So we are staying with the client-side router. Let's prove that by actually using our handle input method. So let's search for Kayla, and you see that it works just fine. We do like jump back in, but we keep focus, which is important. So if we don't want to jump up and down, maybe the data-sveltekit-noscroll would be cool. There you go. Works like a charm. So yeah, request submit, not submit. You need to request submission of the form to stay on the client-side router. So that's huge. That should have been on my notes, but hey, we figured it out in the end. That's nice. What else do we want to do? Cache control. So now this works great. Amazing. We could try to do like some animations in the end if we're feeling it. But if we look at the network requests, you can see that the moment we hover somewhere, we get data that's never cached. We always make a request. And of course, it is just talking to my local Postgres, so the request is fast. But in reality, that request will take longer. And you don't want that to happen every time. So at the very least, what we could set is a private no cache header. Caching is tricky, and caching validation famously one of the two hardest things in engineering. But I think we're safe enough if we just try to say, user, keep a private cache on your browser, and you use that one if needed. So the way we do that in SvelteKit is back to our load method. It gets magically given a set headers method, besides the URL and some other index and bits. So at the end here, if we have managed to get the invoices, then we can say set headers and set cache control. Sure. But we want it private because we're imagining, and this is an authenticated part of the project. Maybe the results are the same. Maybe you only have like one domain. Maybe everyone is like in the example.com company here. Maybe, I guess you are the Acme company. Every user that logs into this website is what I'm trying to say. It's gonna see the same invoices. In that case, that's fine. You can cast them forever and you don't need to worry about anything. But if the results depend on who the user is, then you'd need a private cache. And that's why we're gonna show this now. Because we're imagining that if I log in, maybe I'll see different invoices. Maybe I'll see the customers that I have. Well, if you log in, you'll see your customers and then invoices. Maybe those are different. So you wouldn't want the server to be keeping a shared cache for everyone, because then I'd be possibly getting your customers and invoices and you'd be getting mine. A race condition between who is getting fresh results first. So private cache will ensure that at least you're getting the correct results. And if we do 60, that's like a minute in seconds. Another kind of confusing thing with JavaScript is that usually when we're talking time, it's milliseconds. But when it comes to cache control, because it's not a JavaScript, it's the most common thing where it's actually seconds. So I do like to have variables for this, or constants even. And say 1 minute in seconds, or something like that. And then I can use a template literal to put that in there. And then I remember that, oh, this should be in seconds versus other things that should be in milliseconds. Sometimes, for example, if you're working with a JavaScript library, then maybe that one is going to be taking milliseconds. So maybe the Sukobase quickie thingy, maybe that takes milliseconds. And you really need to have things like that, or I need to have things like that to remember which one is seconds and milliseconds. And now it's in the name, so I won't forget. Anyway, running this, what does that achieve? Let's see, if anything. You'll see that the moment I hover on the links, SvelteKit will cleverly try to prefetch the data, so I get better experience. But if I pre-hover again, then I get it from the cache. I get it from the browser cache. So 0 milliseconds is how long this takes. Let me make this shorter. So every time I hover, SvelteKit does try to see what type of data that I want. And does understand that actually you have this already. It's within 1 minute since the last time you requested it, so you'll get it from your browser. So no further request, you get it instantly, which is awesome. And you can see that's how it works in the deployed example as well, where the numbers should be initially a bit higher. So requests should be taking a bit longer. Search for nothing, have a few pages here. And if I hover here, you can see it takes almost 200 milliseconds. Again, about 2 seconds, but then if I hover again, 0 milliseconds. And if I actually navigate, then I may be getting some other stuff, but most of it is going to be, like all the data is going to be from my browser cache. So essentially instant. You won't be hammering your server, you won't be making your user waiting for longer. Awesome. So that's it, some like fundamental cache control. That's kind of safe, because if it's like 1 minute of cache, then surely your clients will be patient enough to wait 1 minute. They won't notice the difference if it's like stale data or not. If you think they are, even 5 seconds, I'd say, may make a difference. All right, what else? Handling errors. Let's go. So we saw that if someone tries to be naughty, or for some reason they have this in the URL where they have a negative page number, they get 500. Like the server is saying, I give up, I cannot do anything here, which is probably not what we want. Because especially in this case, you know that the user has done something wrong. In SvelteKit, you can create an error boundary for any route by creating another magic file, starts with plus, like every magic file, error.svelte. Let's say, let's look it up in docs, and you see that instantly we do get the layout that this error page is nested in. So it is going to get the layout from the dashboard and the layout from the whole of our page. So that's something. All we need is a nice message to say, you know, to try again, do something. Let's make this break as well. So let's say that we're saying page -2 again. This breaks. I can still navigate away, so the user can kinda like save this. While before, even if you refresh, you're kinda doomed. So if you are in this state where it breaks and you refresh, you're doomed, or if you don't have the error boundary. But if you manage to navigate there and back, it will fix it for you, because you'll get a real URL. And what SvelteKit does with this error boundary is, in the page store again, it gets given the status and the error message. So not necessarily a div, really. Bring in the page store. And then it's going to say this message, but you can say something nicer. You can say something went wrong. Do we have like a frowny face? And then you can say like a retry, which is actually something to get us to load the same page again. And is there like a retry icon or something? Let's have a look. Icons. I want like a spinner, like a refresh, of course. It's gonna be refresh. Kind of like this. I don't like any of these. I think this should be rotated a little bit. Oh well. Prepared UI for this. We're doing it live. You'll notice that I do abuse the flex display type. One day I'll be abusing the grid type because it's awesome. And maybe that's the main tag. And you can actually have a check to see you are in control of the message that gets blown up, that gets populated in the page store. So you can have error codes, for example, and say if it's error code like 132, you make this up, then show this UI or show that component. So you can do clever stuff like that. But for now, we'll not do clever stuff. What we will do is just give the user an opportunity to press a button and refresh the UI. So if they were here and maybe we hadn't taken care of the next buttons, or you could go previously to a page that doesn't exist, like the -1, then the error should happen quickly and you can click retry to kind of reset the state, and then they see the dashboard again, they can use the app again. So that's neat. And we can even emulate the search going wrong, for example. Server being down or something like that. So here, let's say that our thing, throw an error, server go boom. Now you get this, and then the server has not gone boom anymore. You click the button. I guess the host reload makes it not quite work, but in reality, they'd be able to click the button and the server is fine. They get the UI again. Everything is nice and dandy. All right, so that's a bit on the errors. Maybe last thing, what to do with empty UI. Now it doesn't look quite good. And we shouldn't have like a next button either. There is no SvelteKit magic for this. This is just UI magic, front-end magic, designer magic, whatever you want to call it. And maybe we can have a ternary here, for example, or an if else here, and say that was quite funny what Copilot tried to write. If the invoices have a length, then So this else sort placeholder UI. And here you get your designer to design something nice for you. And you could even have separate UI or a separate message depending on whether they have searched or not. But then you need to have a quick look again to the query searchParams to know. So here you can say if, again, let's learn how to do ifs in SvelteKit. Control flow, conditionals, fundamental things in engineering. Yeah, so if the page URL searchParams get free, so if they have searched something, you can say no matching invoices. You need to bring in the page store. Else, you can say no invoices and have like a different thing. You can have an inspector if they have already searched, and you can have like a cute nothing UI. If not, so we thought a search string if we didn't have any invoices in the database. So let's pretend that the query was like something that doesn't have results. Then we say no invoices. So they know that something has happened. They must call somebody to put in an invoice or something. But if they're searching for something that doesn't exist, we acknowledge that they have searched for something, and we've acknowledged that we are looking, but we're not matching the results. And we could be showing the results here as well, but I guess maybe there is not enough UI for it. All right, I think them's the bricks, and that's all. Big thing that the search have gotten right and remembered first time, that request form thing on the search. Ugh. Huge thing. Although using the path name here from the page URL is important, it does mean that you can extract this component into something generic. It doesn't need to be specific to the invoices and say that you need to go back to dashboard invoices. Doing it like that, getting the action, having the action come from the page store based on the URL and the path name there, means that you can pop in this component in your customers. So if we were to implement the customers page, then we can have this search bar as well there, and it would work the same. It would work just as well. I guess we'd need like some parameters for the placeholder values, saying search customers or search something else. But still, the magic stuff, like what the action works, that part is going to be taken care for us. Request submit. Wow, huge thing. All right, so request submit, big thing with this. We did the empty no results UI. And then we find like something cute here. Whoa. Empty. Void. Anything anyone likes here? That one is kind of cute, I guess. Sure. So let's paste that in. Maybe the color should be a bit different. Do we have a different directory? Seems like something that we'd be able to use elsewhere. Not data, but svelte. Which part is the blue part? The clipboard part. Is it this? Probably. It appears twice. Let's call it red. And let's try to render this. Right, that was kind of correct. Oh, it will need to do the thing. It may be easier with Svelte 5. Oh, that's all over the place. Hey girl, nice to see you here. Yes, for the styling, you need to kind of put up with class names to classes as well. You can have a look at the deployed dashboard that we have as well. Like, feel free to get in there, because even the Next.js version, you can come in here and then it's rendered as HTML, so you can copy these classes here, and that's what I do for these episodes usually. So I just do edit as HTML and steal everything, and then it gets like all the classes that I need. That's one way to do it. So just copy them like this. Right, so I was trying to find, speaking of Tailwind, read my mind, I wanted to go to the color palette and just find a nice rose color. Yeah, you do have to log in, but I don't remember what I put there. Kinda hidden, because maybe people are gonna be naughty. There are... there you go. So this is the user, nextmail.com, password at next.js. Use that one and have fun. If you have too much fun, I'll have to reset the database and change the password. But until then, or if not you, if someone does do that. But until then, use that one, or else on the Discord, I can hook anyone up. Right, so colors, rose gold. Let's say we want this. So everything that's bluey, be this, great. And we want to portlet class name. So just class name, I guess. Be nothing. Export this. And then here. All right, that made it work. Class is a result of the keyword in JavaScript, which is why more JavaScript-based frameworks like React use class name, and why we have to use class name here, because the moment you do JavaScript here, they're like, you can't directly call a variable class. We won't let you. That's by the by. And this one, what do we want here? Flex container, like always, full, center, all of that. All right, won't win any design awards, but I think it looks good enough. And on big screens, yeah, not bad, decent. So empty, no results UI, like we made it a bit better. I think that's it. We can have a look at I think that's it. Let's commit everything. I could reuse that search component now. We forgot to do the timeout cleanup, which is important. The design award is mine. Thank you, Kirill. That's so kind. So there is a case where if people do search here, ooh, how did that happen? Did I kill the server? Okay. I was like, what happened? I said we fixed everything. There is a case where if people like furiously search here and then they navigate away, like we leave one timeout hanging, which, you know, it's not the end of the world, but it's bad practice. Sometimes it will be the end of the world. So how do we clean that up? So this timeout would be hanging if they are typing and they manage to navigate away before the 300 milliseconds. Is that possible? I don't know. But we can use the onMount lifecycle hook. And inside it, we're going to do nothing. But a bit like React, we can return a method which is going to run when the component unmounts. So onMount in this body, it's what you want to happen when the component mounts the browser. And then in the end, you can put in what you want to happen when the component gets unmounted. And what we want to happen is to clear the timeout if it exists. Even if it doesn't exist, this is just gonna run and nothing bad will happen. So I guess that's for consistency. We can do the same, and we can inline return here, have like a little one-liner that may be hard to understand, but onMount, it returns a method. That method is going to run when it unmounts. on mount. When it unmounts, it's gonna clear the timeout if it exists. Yeah, so that's some good cleanup right there. Anything else we remember to do? Not really. So we can commit everything. That's search pagination. And then we can have a look just for the fun of it and see, does Svelte 5 work today with this project? Because maybe it doesn't. Last time we got like a CSS error. Let's see. Some other packages are still flipping out by the fact that we're using Svelte 5. And it works. Does it? Yeah, it works. Cool. Looks like this week Svelte 5 works. Nice. Which version did we get? Svelte 5 version next 5. Last time I think we tried next.1 or 2. It was very early. So that's nice. Oh, the UI library we're using is flipping out. I'm sure it's part of the problem here. Now it works. But yeah, that UI library that we're using, not adapted to Svelte 5. It looks like, but hey, it kind of works. Maybe we can have a look at our table and see if we can try to use a snippet or something. So each invoices as invoice. Like, are there even docs on how to use snippets, or will I have to just make it up? Svelte 5 snippets. Oh, there you go. Svelte 5 preview docs. They're in. Great. So snippets, if you don't know what's the talk by Ritz, because he will explain it much better than I will. Much like in this case, where it could be handy to have a specific component for each row of this table that we've been working on. You don't really want to create a new file for every row, because then you need to redeclare props. Like, it's a bit of a hassle. In general, even in React, I do like having one component per file, to be honest. But I can see the case where maybe it would be handier to have like a mini component in the same file. That's exactly what the sveltes are supposed to be. Instead of having all of this, then you declare a snippet, which is a mini component inside our components, but don't have lifecycle methods and that sort of thing, for example. So maybe they're more performant as well, maybe. And in your its, you just say render this, and it's easier to do like if-else statements and all of that. I guess this is a particularly good case, because you can see that here you have like replicated code. It's just that in this case, it's in an anchor tag. In the other case, it's not in an anchor tag. And how would you do that? You need to duplicate this code, or you need to create an extra component, and you don't really want to. So let's see. Let's try to create a snippet. It looks like we need to signify do JavaScript. Say we're gonna do snippet. And the IDE, the Svelte plugin for VS Code, already knows what snippets are. And let's say take some invoice, which we have typed. It's a UI invoice. And in there, My editor is kind of flipping out, but maybe it will stop flipping out. Unclear. I guess we want all of this row to be in the snippet. We'll stop flipping out then. Not really. All right, let's try to add this thing. UI works. Let's try to put this in here, right? Not flipping out. Sure, we can call this snippet. What can we call it? We can call it row, not, and text invoice. And can we type it? Is that the problem? That can't be typed? Prettier will just refuse to format it, I guess. So we need to wait a bit longer until we are in Svelte 5 land. Is there anything else that I would need to update? Maybe the Svelte tag? That sounds likely. That sounds likely. So is there like a Svelte tag 4 pre-release or Svelte 5? Nah. Oh well, in any case, my editor cannot understand this snippet or Svelte 5, so we're gonna leave it at that. Another week. So for today, I think we've done everything, and we can go back to finish the next Learn course for SvelteKit by doing the authentication stuff in the end. As a reminder, you can go to this app, link in the description. There is no login functionality, but you can manually go to the dashboard and try not to be naughty. You can see this nice little graph that we've got the invoices route we just made. And what else do we need? I think that's it. The customers page, we probably are not going to do that. Can create invoices, don't go too crazy. But sign in, sign out, this should be protected. That's the last bit remaining. And then something with metadata, but like having the 5 icons work, the open graph images, but I think that's going to be fast. The big thing will be authentication. And we may do that on Tuesday, come back to finish the course, or I may do an XCS intersection and talk about internationalization and localization or something. Let me know what you'd like to see more. Maybe there's something else that striking your fancy, but I do believe we can get it done in the next episode of Live Coding and Chill. Also, let me know if you liked today's episode, which was more, here's how you do this. Even if we had the mishap with the request form, which caught me out. That's why I like notes. That's why I'll probably do a short video on this. If it's not going to be too long, if it's under 10 minutes, I may shoot it and be like, bam, bam, bam. This is how you do it. Hey, Delight, nice to see you in the chat. So there are two options. I know people really like Clerk, so I'd love to do that. People have requested that I talk about Clerk, but the next Learn course is using Next Auth, and we have used that in the past, and they do have a SvelteKit version of this. So I'm between Clerk or Nextauth again, but the SvelteKit version of Auth.ts, which is, I think, you do know about clearly. So what would you like to see me do more is the question. I do have the link on searchParams, but in a different episode as part of my research. Nextauth SvelteKit. Ah, there you go. Vercel had a blog about this and they had a template, so that's the thing that we'd be trying to do. Maybe the difference will be that we will try to do it with a provider instead of email and password login. Well, yes, there you go, settled. So we'll try to do it like this, maybe with a provider instead of email and password, just to keep things more fun. We'll see. And then we don't have to worry about bcrypt, crypto, like that sort of thing either. Because we do want to deploy on the edge, and that may make things a bit trickier. And no, look, their nice markdown stylizer, code highlighter is not recognized in SvelteKit. Like this isn't getting syntax highlighted. Interesting. I've had this problem before. Right, so let me know, time for final audience questions, and we are gonna call it a day. We've been on a streak of like 3-hour and 4-hour streams that is ending today. My little puppy is gonna be delighted for this. Just a quick 2-hour stream today. More time for puppy cuddles and walks. Sweet. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. I hope you've had a nice time here with me. I hope you learned something. I learned something yet again, that the request form thing in particular, but other things too. I always pick up something. I do say, I started the stream saying that the best way to learn is to be wrong on the internet, but I don't believe that the best way. I do think the best way to learn is to teach, and that's why I love doing it so much. And anyone can do it. If you put your hand up and say, I'm going to do a lightning talk on anything next week, I guarantee you'll have learned so much about it. And even if it's from the perspective of a beginner, then you'll still have insight. There are, especially for Lisp style languages, they say the moment you become an expert in Lisp, you become unable to teach it to anybody else. You become unable to teach it to a beginner, and you lose perspective of what it was like to be a beginner. So it's invaluable, especially good to have people starting out, to have them out teaching stuff that they just learned. And hello Arian again, thanks for joining again. And yes, this time it's gonna be a shorter stream. I think it was a cool one, I think we had flow. And next time we're gonna do auth. And I'll catch you on the Discord as well. Thanks for all your questions and the thought participation. I hope you have lovely weekends. Goodbye.